Hi. Call to order a meeting of the Watchung Borough School District Board of Education. This is our board retreat. It is June 26, 2025 at 7 p.m. Can we please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, a nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We all made it.
Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media, consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Laws of 1975, and that the advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung at which formal action may be taken. Meeting is being live streamed on the district website, where a recording of the meeting will also be posted. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda at points in the meeting provided for the public to address the board. Recording or photographing, other than for private personal use, requires the consent of parents or guardians whose children may be included in the image. Get a roll call, please.
Mrs. Amadeo,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Here.
Mrs. Harvey,
Here.
Mrs. Jewett,
Here.
Mr. Kraft,
Here.
Mrs. Maddox,
Here.
Mrs. Santos,
Here.
and Mrs. Aguilar.
Here.
And Mr. Frazier is absent.
Okay, so our first order of business is the Board of Education self-assessment, the discussion will be led by Ms. Patricia Reese from New Jersey School Boards Association.
There we go. Thank you. Is it on? Thank you. For having me again. It feels like I've never left. We were here just not too long ago. Tonight we're doing something kind of fun, by my standards maybe. We're going to talk about goal setting, and it's something that boards do every year. And we'll go into it, the different levels of goals, but it really is setting your students up for success. So do I just tell him every time I need to? Yes.
Aaron. If you say Aaron.
So I know, as we're going through this, right, for goal setting, you want to look at what have you as a board accomplished this year? Is there anything that needs additional focus? And what are your priorities? These are just global questions. So the next slide. I put this slide is in here because we talk at the stair-step model of responsibility. So your first level of goals is the strategic planning goals, which you just finished, and you should have those action plans, I think, in August to go through them. But from the strategic plan goals, will come the district goals, which will be based on that, and then the board goals should also be based on that, all the way down to to all the different levels of goals in your district should be based on the strategic planning goals, and hopefully down into the students, where you'll see student goals leading towards student success. The next slide, please. So there are two kinds of goals. There's the strategic planning goals, which were collaboratively set in a great process that you involved your community with. Next level are the district goals, which is owned by everybody in the district, and it's set by your superintendent as well as the board. And then again, they should be based on what came out in your strategic plan, and then once the district goals are decided and approved by the board, then the superintendent, like the strategic planning goals, goes to do the action plans, the how. How are we going to accomplish what you said we're going to accomplish? Whereas the board goals are owned by the board alone, and it's about processes and tasks that are owned by the board, things that they do, how to help their governance structure, things that they want to accomplish. To the next slide, please. This slide, instead of going through every step, it really is that goal setting is a continuous process. Generally, boards set goals for district and board goals over the summer. Action plans are set maybe by August, early September. Then you measure those, and then you periodically update your community, the board and the community, about your progress towards those goals, and make any adjustments as they're needed. But again, it's an ongoing process. Would you do the next slide, please? And we know that effective school boards define clear goals that on the expectation and the belief that all of your students can learn. And that's really why we have the graphic dream big, set goals, take action. You want all your students to achieve to the best of whatever their ability is. Next slide. So as we're going through this, you want to look at what should you focus on this year? Is there anything that rose to the top? Are there did you want to address any emerging mental health issues for your students and your staff? Aligning your financial resources at this point to support student achievement, but also to support the strategic plan as you move through that. We'll do the next slide. And as we go through when we get to the setting the board goals, you also look at your strategic planning goals. These goals, this will be pseudo the first year. Really, next year will be the first year because you don't have the action plans yet on exactly how to accomplish what that is. But you should look at those to see where they fit in, where the district goals might be aligned to that, and then where your board goals might be aligned to that. Next slide. And I just put in, just globally, what the goal statements were that was collaboratively set with your community. And again, you had such a wonderful turnout between community members, staff, board members, even elected officials. It's really is a tribute to your community. I've not seen that much turnout, that much involvement on all those different levels in many communities. So I think that really speaks well to not only Watchung Borough schools, but also to these strategic planning goals. There are 4, how broad they are, and how everybody has really agreed to that. We'll go to the next slide. So when we look at the district goals, you look at from last year, if there's any progress that you made towards those district goals, do they need to be carried over another year? Do they need to be tweaked? Do they need to be have they been accomplished? Do you need to choose something else? It's those district goals then that become the basis of your superintendent's evaluation. And that's why the district goals are collaboratively set by the board and the superintendent, because that is how you will, that is one of the primary ways you will be evaluating your superintendent is on progress towards those district goals. And next slide. Okay, as I said, they can sometimes be carried over. We recommend about 3 to 5 district goals every year. Any more than 5, and it becomes onerous for the administrative team. They're spending all their time trying to achieve those goals, and they have another job. Their primary job is the education of all your students. So 3 to 5 really is the minimum and the maximum that the board and superintendent should focus on throughout the year. And then, determine on when you want those updates. We recommend quarterly updates at a board meeting on progress towards those goals. Just so everybody's up to speed on it, and as well as keeping a pulse on it that you may need to tweak them. Something may have happened, like when all the schools shut down for the pandemic, right? If you had a district goal during that time frame, and that was March through like the end of the year, whatever your district goal was that might be achieved in those last few months, the world shut down. You couldn't do it. So you have to be flexible as a board, and to what any changes that you make that you might want to, that might happen, from there.
So I was going to say for this year, we had the two goals. We had the budget, we had the strategic plan. So
And actually,
all
that's
of
the next
our work, right, all of the budget goals, all of the strategic plan goals already came together. So those updates for this year, I have to say, it made my life easy because we had the State of the District, bless you, State of the District in January. We had the three, bless you, the three public meetings, right? We had January, well, February, but the very beginning of March, the end of March, right? And then we had another budget meeting, not just for the district, we had the borough meeting. So an unusual year, I would say this year you had 5 opportunities for update. So when we're setting the goals and talking about the updates going forward, please also set that expectation, right? Like this year it was preset, so it was very straightforward and easy. But if there's something else, we should declare it.
If you do the next slide, that actually has your district goals. There you go. That from last year, your district goals: develop a sustainable budget, as Dr. Glazer said, that supports identified curricular changes and implement program initiatives and professional development to support both, and to develop a strategic plan, which certainly you've accomplished that. Right? You've had that whole process, and you have the strategic plan. So as you get through to deciding what your district goals will be with your superintendent, you look at what you accomplish and what's coming up. And we go to the next slide, and just go to the next one. Thank you. So once you've determined, and Dr. Glazer, my understanding is you wanted to do the district goals in August, or did you want to?
No, we're planning to do the district and board goals tonight, right, everybody?
All right, so can you go back
I just want to be.
to the next, back one slide, please? There we go. So that's what this slide was up here, was about. Do you have any direction you want to give the board on?
Wasn't prepared for that. But I will say that we know we have some significant initiatives, not just growing out of the strategic plan. I would say under that strategic plan umbrella from last year with the budget, and I would say under the umbrella, we have the new textbook and resource adoptions in math and language arts. Those are a big lift, right? Our staff needs to get to know the text. We are realigning the scope and sequence and curriculum, right, to incorporate that text. We always have as part of our curriculum the differentiated instruction, meaning the interventions, the above level, gifted and talented, if you will. I don't like to use that, exceptional, the multi-language learners or special ed learners, that's all built into that curriculum. So we need to be able to not only introduce the staff and the students to the resources that are going to support that, but our families, right? During the course of the year, it's a new book, it's a new, in language arts, the science of reading and writing, while it's still that whole language and still has that focus on balanced literacy, it does look different. So we have that, we have all of that to look forward to. Oh my gosh, we have all of that to look forward to. And I would say that either couched in a bigger goal or under student achievement or curriculum might be the frame or the basis of a goal, because that's going to be a lot of work, I think, for collectively for everyone. So that would be one thought. And of course, we do have when Patty comes back in August with the published plan, it'll also have not just the first year strategic plan action goal, it'll have our first year district goal action plan and hopefully the board's action plan for the year. So you have that opportunity to use the broader, I guess, strategic plan goal as well. Those would be the first two thoughts.
So under the student achievement strategic plan goal,
Curriculum,
have-
textbook.
have a district goal for implementing the new curricular changes in textbooks, along with professional development, communication with the families, something like that,
I would have that as a separate.
in the action plan.
So the communication around the curriculum in that, yes, would be that goal, but we had the three other goals as well. So that's all I was saying. You have some of those topics twice.
Can we see the slide with all the strategic plan goals?
So slide with this.
So we can see them all up?
Uh,
Four, sorry.
Well, so the language,
And the three other.
yes, so the four, there's the student achievement,
Another
Back one
one.
more, Aaron.
Go back another one. Another one.
more. It's got the four.
One more.
There you go.
Thank you.
So student achievement, professional learning and capacity building, communication and community engagement, school culture and climate. So those first three strategic plan goals, that's what I was saying. You could couch the curriculum piece, the different, the student achievement piece with the resources, the professional learning and capacity building for the staff and students, and the community engagement and communication with the communicating the changes. And I do think that that'll impact school culture and climate. I just don't, it's not a accessible goal to me. You come up with
So
something.
does it make, so it makes sense for you to spread them out as three different goals as opposed to one goal?
Oh, no, one goal, just, so remember, strategic plan is the umbrella.
Right.
And then everything comes under that. So if there's a district,
There'd be one goal about textbook adoption,
and
professional
it would
development, et
touch
cetera, and
those
it just-
three,
it
right.
just lines up to all three.
There you go.
Great.
There you go, better way to say it.
So do we want to talk about, I mean, I think that goal makes sense. Is it, in terms of what you want to achieve with that goal, are you looking at an academic, right? Do we want an academic metric on that goal, or?
Well, you won't see that in the first year.
Okay.
Like, do you mean if you're to use the May test scores based on, is that what you're saying
Not
as an
necessarily. It
academic
could be a
goal?
two-year goal. It could be a,
Well, and
you
that's,
know.
right, that makes, to me, that makes some sense. I just want to be careful, not managing the expectations, but you are not
Right.
going to see, an 80%
No.
proficient in
And
the
strategic
first
plan
year.
goals are a 5-year goal. So every year, you may have a different action plan. So at the end of 5 years, these are the broad goal areas you want to accomplish. So every year might have something different.
Right, I understand. So I guess my question was, for a goal around this new textbook resource adoption, how do we know if we are successful, right?
Yep. And so when we build out and maybe we don't have to do it again this way, but as we've built out the goals, they've been fairly generous in this frame. And then as we build the action plan, it becomes that SMART, for lack of a different term, SMART goal, specific, measurable, right? So come up with some of the measurable, time-bound if you'd like, but I end up building that into the language in the action plan. That's all. It's just easier. I know, you're like Tim Walt.
So are there no metrics put against these district level goals?
No, of course.
Okay.
That's the measurable part.
I think she means like the overarching goal. I watched the webinar last year.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it again this year, so unless anything is, maybe something has changed, but like the district goal itself isn't SMART, the action plan is SMART. So the measurable stuff goes in the action plan.
Got it.
That's what I guess.
And that's where you measure whether or not the broader goal has been achieved, but the measurable stuff goes in the action plan. So there's like a broad goal, and then you detail out in the action plan how you're going to carry it out and how you're going to measure it, whether it was successful.
And for
So, like-
district goals, that's set by Dr. Glazer, the
So
actual.
if you looked at the district goal, this year's, right, the budget one, just as an example, which of course I don't have up, hold on. Develop a sustainable budget that supports identified curricular changes and implement program initiatives and professional development to support both, right? That's your
That's
brain.
very broad.
But when you go back and look at the action steps, the SMART, right, the specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound, see if I can pull that up real quick. Goal one, maybe.
This is the workshop, right? We're diving into.
Oh, no, this is what you're doing it all, you're perfect. You're,
Valid question.
But
I'm looking for the actual language of from the action plan of the SMART goal, but if you have another question, look, because that's where I'm.
Just my thought on this is that the idea of like having a district goal of textbook resource adoption,
Well, that,
that
and the curricular piece.
right, but that seems more like an action as opposed to a higher goal, right? That seems more like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to implement this in order to achieve X.
So,
And so like the
More broad.
bigger, more broad, like the bigger goal would be, you know, I don't know, bring our students up to date on blah, 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 or some form of academic success related goal, and that within that, we are doing the textbook resource adoption, we are doing the basic skills, we are doing these other things.
so, yes, this piece of writing the curriculum, aligning the skills, doing the differentiated components of the curriculum, bringing the staff up to speed on the new resources as well as the students and the families is huge in and of itself. So that's where not that I'm not, I understand. I think I'm trying to frame under the strategic plan goals, a district goal that's achievable.
Okay.
That's kind of, because it's going to be a big lift.
I agree with you, Danielle. I think
not
those are
gonna
all action
disagree.
items, and there should be a broader goal.
Action item.
Every one of those things, teacher, professional development, all of that, those are all action items within whatever the goal is going to be.
Does a district goal have to be a single year goal?
No, I think
No.
So we could have a 2-year goal that reflects some sort of academic change.
You can carry a district goal as many years out as you need to. Could every year your action plan may be a bit different, and the resources that you have available to address that broad goal may not be available all in 1 year or all in 2 years. So you'd have to take it. So you can have it go out a couple of years, and then after a couple of years, you may tweak it to something different or say it's been accomplished.
So I think my question is, and I'm sorry I'm talking so much, please everybody else jump in. I guess my question is, under the student learning and achievement strategic plan goal, what is the smaller goal that this major action item of all of this textbook adoption is going to direct to? What do we want to achieve with that?
Maybe it could be more like program development.
What do you mean?
So I don't know if we're just focusing mainly on just language arts or,
We have
but
language
we
arts and
could
math.
then make the goal about those specific programs that we're developing to make sure that they're up to standards and aligning properly. And those are all the action items that would go with it. How it would be phrased, I'm not sure, but that could be maybe the broader idea of it that we're working on, or the superintendent's working on program development. So if it's visual and performing arts, if it's, athletics, if it's the STEM or STEAM, or the new math program that we're
For
developing,
this year, it would be.
those are all things
math and
those are all different programs, so.
I would think.
I think what we need is to see more specifics. We're just used to seeing things more specifically listed. And these, not that they're that broad, they are pretty
They are
broad.
broad. Well, strategic planning goals are intended to be broad, and then
Meant to be that way.
So,
action plans bring the
Because you want to make sure
specificity.
you're reaching some of these goals. This is the important part.
Yeah.
And you judge that when you get into the district goals.
Well, you get that, first you kind of have the action plan that will
This is what we're going to do to get here.
right.
so the goal last year, right? Develop a sustainable budget that supports, right, blah, blah. And then you have the SMART goal, if you will, the specific measurable, right? So by April 2025, develop and implement a financially stable, self-sufficient budget that directly supports curricular priorities and changes, new program initiatives, and targeted professional development investment. This budget is aligned with at least 80% of the district's identified instructional and program needs, funding each within the 2025-2026 fiscal year, created through collaborative budget planning with stakeholder input, ensuring transparency, equity, resource allocation. The budget supports the Board of Education and district goals, enhancing the quality of curriculum instruction and improved outcomes. So that is the SMART goal for that general, develop a sustainable budget, right? And I think you could hear where it's specific. We're developing the budget, right? That's got to meet the district's financial obligations, plus prioritizing what everybody said they wanted to do. Measurable, it has that at least 80% of what we tried to do. We weren't able to fund everything that we said we wanted to do. And we know if you meet that, right, that measurable piece, because we included the key initiatives, as many as we could, in that final budget, you had the new positions or the textbook adoptions, the curriculum writing this summer. That's all the measurables, saying that we were doing that. Achievable, right? Because you had to know how much money we have, right? What we could actually do. We couldn't recommend everything, but I think that the board did an amazing job trying to provide the best possible opportunities, right, for the staff and the students. It's relevant. I think that it's obvious why it's relevant. You don't need me to go through that. And then achieved, you got to see the tentative, well, you were in Florida, but the tentative budget presentation, the borough presentation, the final presentation, and then we used that, right? So last year's goals were part of the state of the district. We used that in strategic planning. So that's part of how you know it was that time bound, right? That we hit it. So does that
Help.
make it, well, no, does that hit those specific, take it from the general goal to very granular for you? Okay.
What if we did something like implement new program initiatives to enhance student achievement?
In ELA and math.
Is that broader?
So say get new program, because,
Implement new program initiatives to enhance student achievement. And then you could, if you wanted it more specific, you could say in ELA and math, or you could leave it open if you wanted to put that.
I guess it would depend, is it a 1 or more year goal, right? Like, I think math and ELA are absolutely going to be this year, but we know as part of the strategic plan, we're hoping to look at world language, we're hoping to look at, right, as Dory said, the STEAM and the SOAR. So if it's
Planning jobs, like that's what we need to plan out this year?
Well, so I guess if it's a multi-year goal, what I'm saying is this year, if the goal is over 2 years, right? Implement new program initiatives to enhance student achievement.
Right.
Done. And then year 1, math and ELA, and prepare for, or maybe program review of some of the others, ties back to the strategic plan action goal and gives you, I guess, a multi-year perspective.
I think that makes sense.
Wouldn't you guide us on what, after we, let's say that's one of the goals, wouldn't you then guide us on what you think could be achieved in year 1 and year?
That would be that.
So that, you go back and figure that out and bring that back to us in August, correct?
Yes, well, no, I would bring it back as fast as I could because in August, the action plan gets published. So we would probably talk about it in our July and August
Goal 1.
curriculum or whoever. So wait,
done.
I just want to make sure we captured it. You're writing it too, so I
writing
want to
it,
make
yes.
sure we both get it.
I'm just making, let me,
You,
I got the right
we-
wording.
Well, we'll
Implement,
ChatGPT it up to make it really fancy.
well, I know. It texts me hearing everybody what they said, too. Implement new program initiatives to enhance student achievement. Is there something after that?
In ELA and math, I think that's specific.
well, I think, are we going to say, are we giving it a period of time? Because that's where to Adam's question,
Year period of time.
right? So I would do.
They're annual.
Right, so I would say, in that case, implement new program initiatives to enhance student achievement.
Full stop?
Want to be,
Wide limit.
just leave it, and then,
Wide
I
limit.
was trying to tie it to to give it the.
I just don't know
multi-year.
if that is any more narrow than student learning and achievement 5-year plan, you know?
Yeah.
Should we not?
Yeah,
get a little
program
more narrow?
initiatives.
Well, that's why I was asking about if you said, over the next 2 years, or between the 2025,
Yeah.
26 and 26, 27 school year, and then we focus, as
Stipulate
Adam said, over
ELA and
it.
math, we're going to say that's specific.
ELA and math, if that's what we're doing, that would be year 1. That's kind of what I'm asking.
Well, but then we would be looking at hopefully
you would do the-
improvements in
The other
scores
areas.
and, or
right.
whatever else. No, in ELA and math, right? You're doing the implementation year 1, but we want to see growth
Yes,
in
yes,
year 2.
yes.
And then I think separately, we're working on this basic skills. We have 0.5 right now. We hope to get to 0.1.
That's a position. I think that's a
Right.
budget commitment. What I'm saying as far as program review is going through a cycle of there's an actual prescribed cycle of improvement for looking at programs. We could do that if there's an issue with basic skills. I thought it
actually
was
said what I
world language and SOAR, right? That's what is in the strategic plan.
Right. What I was going to suggest, and this was just an idea to throw out there, was looking specifically at the I don't know what the right term is to say is the underachievers, the ones who are
Struggling.
what?
The ones that are struggling.
Ones
Or
that
at
are
risk,
struggling. At risk. Can we build a goal around help around them? That includes the basic skills teacher and includes perhaps some other.
It wouldn't be this same goal.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Right, so
that's
that
got you.
right,
It
so
would be a
this
second goal.
becomes specific to ELA and
Got
math,
you.
and we have specifically a students at risk goal.
Which is perfect. Just know that our the students at risk are typically also language, arts, and math, just so it'll hit maybe from global to specific, but because, again, I think we're also going to be looking at SOAR, I think you're going to be looking at a continuum of achievement if you're going to do that kind of
So
goal.
what I think, I'm going to piggyback off of what Adam's saying, is that if you want to list all of the programs that are going to be developed in the goal, and then in the action plan, you can break it down as to year one, you're specifically going to focus on these programs, and year two on the other ones. But basic skills and whatnot can be put in as an action item for the superintendent to work on, as opposed to specifically listing it out in the goal. But I don't know what other programs you want to develop. We only said ELA and math. That seems like 1 year. So are we going to do STEAM? Are we going to do visual and
So
performing
what we
arts? Are
were
we doing
saying-
science? Like what are, like, because then I would say list them all in the main goal and then let Julie break it down.
Or
There
allow
are
the
two layers in our conversation. We have the strategic plan, which includes that program review, world language, SOAR, I'll say interventions because it's multi-language learning, right? It's special ed. So we have that umbrella, right, of student learning and achievement. So what I thought that I was hearing over here, that's the unfortunate part of a lot of conversations at the same time, that if goal one is implement new program initiatives to enhance student achievement, and the action plan is math and ELA resources, curriculum alignment, year one, and showing the academic or achievement, progress, whatever language is year two, but also at the same time, right, we are still planning the program review of those other programs, not specific to this goal. So I think I heard a second goal, even still student achievement and learning, but a second goal specific to, again, either, I don't want to say differentiation, but the spectrum of achievement, basic skills through enhanced, so that we're looking at our basic skills learners, our multi-language learning learners, special education learners, our exceptional learners. But that I heard as a second goal, not glommed into the first goal.
Sounds like a lot.
It is a lot.
Like, is that?
It's
more
a
than-
lot.
Is that too much for two?
Oh, but it's 2 years, right? Aren't you, you're picturing it as.
When you say 2 years, you say
program-
year one to implement and year two to measure?
A program, well, that's for the first goal, right? Not that you aren't measuring in the first year.
Right,
The
but I-
second year, we're actually looking for academic progress in that math and ELA.
Understood.
The second goal is trickier with that because that cycle of improvement, that program review cycle, could actually take the whole 5 years of the strategic plan. The continuous improvement in
What?
year
So
one,
what-
you're looking at
Can we dig into that for a second? Because there's different departments in each school, department heads.
You have none.
Yeah. So, but we're hiring curriculum.
We have a supervisor of instruction, job description that we're developing.
Lead
But
teachers.
that person is working with the curriculum writing, the implementation, observations, working with the grants, right, to tie in especially the basic skills and the social emotional component. That person, again, part of our challenge with the job description is making it a job that's actually accomplished, something we can
Achievable,
accomplish.
right.
Because we do not, that's part of, and we didn't have a report this month because we haven't met, but I understand we're meeting next month. when the different initiative, regionalization, how can we access?
I was going to say, so
Right, how
yeah,
can
what,
we?
I guess a better question is who would be responsible for the program review and initiative creation and implementation? If we're saying,
So all of these, unfortunately, are me, but luckily, so I have the
With-
unfortunately.
there's gotta be
It all
some-
starts there.
But fortunately, we have our principals, right, who are working closely with the staff. We'll have our supervisor of instruction. And I have to say, because people keep saying a director or an administrator, we got that title from the county because it does not impact
That's
our
fine.
administration.
I'm just curious
No, I want to.
who and how many
most
people are
people,
involved in
I think
this.
they think that content head or supervisor. This is an overarching, right, instructional position. So yes, that person to help, special services person. So it's not like there aren't other people that'll have different responsibilities. It'll have to be collaborative.
Right.
But think that it's still, unless we get a really special supervisor of instruction, it'll still fall here with help.
And how the district goes, right? You as a board have one employee, and it's the superintendent, and then they direct the rest of the staff. So, the district goal is sufficiently broad, for, the first one, implement new program initiatives. Well, what those initiatives are and where the greatest need are is determined by your administration, and that's what would be reflected in the action plans. So you hold the superintendent, by way of achievement towards the progress towards the district goals, accountable in their evaluation. They hold the rest of the staff accountable to them in their evaluation process of the rest of the staff.
So it sounds, I think you and I are saying similar things in that it wouldn't make sense to specify which subjects within the goal.
I would think you would want your administration, your
Right.
superintendent administration, to determine where the greatest need is.
Right.
And
So when it comes to a board goal,
yes. Or this is a,
don't specify them. From the action steps, that's where that would be.
Right.
Yeah.
Since that goal touches the first three strategic plan goals, do we want one on school culture and climate?
Yes, but can we
I was going to say,
Go back to
first?
the, yeah.
before we?
So I just have to say something. I feel like I'm so confused. Are we discussing something specific? Do we have something that we're going to refer to? Are we writing something down that we want to implement, add? Are we just talking right now? What
We are trying to
what are we
create
doing?
our district goals.
Okay,
and Patty has captured, I think I
Writing things.
captured it.
okay.
So,
Starting from scratch, based on our strategic plan, what goals do we want to set for this year at the highest level? Right? And we're talking right now about potentially a 2-year goal that perhaps is related to ELA and math, although we're not sure.
no, I think that it is, I think it has to be. Yeah. What the language so far is implement new program initiatives to enhance student achievement. So for sure, for year 1 and 2, that includes our new math, right? Our new math resources, our new language arts resources, the curriculum writing, right? The communication and community engagement. So that's, I think so far, the tangible.
Does that feel good and clear to you, Julie?
Yes.
I mean, it's also, there was a thought about waiting to see what the action plans are for the strategic plan to come up with more specific goals. Some boards do it, some,
We're going to
boards-
do it, I think, simultaneously.
I mean,
just
the
'cause it's
strategic
easier.
plan drives, right now that you have one, it drives all the goals below. And then you saw the stair steps. So as you're going up the stairs, and each different goal area or goal that different populations have in your district, the board, the administrators, the building goals, the student goals, the teacher, should all build, now that you have a strategic plan, should all build on that strategic plan. So some boards do them, the district goals before they get the strategic, and some wait till then. I mean, the board goals can be sufficiently broad to also encompass the strategic plan, things like provide the resources necessary to achieve the strategic goal, which every year could be something different.
I think what I'm missing is that I'm a visual person, and because I'm not visually seeing something in front of me, it's just not quite, steps aren't there, and our conversation is just kind of,
Go
other
back
slide?
to the slide, maybe.
The slide that you're writing in so that she can see.
I don't think Patty's writing in this slide.
you're not?
Aaron's contrling this slide.
Oh, you weren't typing into the slide. Oh, okay, I thought you were. Oh, okay.
show you
No, that's fine.
So, Aaron, the slide that has the steps,
Oh, okay.
maybe that'll help
We need a big
visualize it.
It's 1, 2. It's about the third slide from the beginning, the third after the
Let me look in the
title. Okay, that one. There we go. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, and well, yes, but I think for Jessica, the one, was there, I can't remember if it's this year's or last year's, I'm sorry, I know I shared so much with you. The concentric circles, is that in this one? Oh, yeah. I think it's the circles that make the most sense, and I'm just going to go to the art room and look for a white one.
This one.
Yes.
Go forward one slide, please. There we go. That's what she was talking about. So with the district goals, and you look at as I said, they're owned by everybody, right? But there's collaboratively set with the superintendent, because you will be holding the superintendent accountable to those goals. So some of the kinds of things that you see up there that can be a district goal about program, and that first one you have is about program, instruction, staff, professional development, facilities, and finance. And what you had last year was along those lines. You had something along the lines of develop a sustainable budget type, those kinds of goals. So you have one about the new programming. What other?
Jessica, is this making sense?
it is, but, like I said, it's a visual thing for me, so I just want to know what is our base, what do we have right now?
Yeah.
What are we trying to build from? I don't know, I didn't look at what last year's was, so it's hard for me to visualize something that
The district goals last year were the budget one,
right?
right? And develop a strategic plan. So those district goals were very much sort of leading us to what we want to now
Right.
create.
What is kind of easier is if the superintendent is proposing certain goals, that we receive them prior to this meeting so that we can read them and digest them ahead of time. And then it's kind of more beneficial for us to come to the table and discuss them and offer suggestions and whatnot. So
Idea.
that's usually kind of helpful in this case, but we're kind of doing it like at this meeting. So I think that's where the visual aspect of it is missing,
Yeah.
because people don't see whatever it is in front of them. And then, even if certain action items are listed there, that gives people a better idea as to what's happening. So I think that might be where some of the confusion is too.
Maybe. So we have for the moment, the goal that seems
I'm going to go.
pretty clear at this point is this program development goal.
Right.
That would be over 2 years. And that would potentially break down, you potentially see later as Dr. Glazer sort of fleshes that out, into a year 1 more development-based, year 2 more academic and metrics-based. And I'm still confused because I think there's a lot of different programs that could come under that. And I think, personally, I think we should get more specific.
Yep.
Because there might be a different timeline for other programs, you know? Like world language might be on a different timeline from ELA and math. So I would like to be really clear about which programs we're developing right now and starting to implement.
Right. So I think it would help is like somebody mentioned having a whiteboard or one of those.
Dr. Glazer just went to see if she.
So if we wrote those down, then we can see, okay, this, then I think that helps to jar, you know, your brain, and gives you an idea of, okay, this is the direction we want to head. This is our header. What are some of the things that we want underneath?
I think we could put the math and ELA under it and keep it as a multi-year goal. As we develop other programs, we move them into the implementation, under the implementation goal as time goes forward. ELA and math would obviously be this year.
Yeah, those are the
That could be specific in the action plan. We don't think we need to get rid of this goal next year. We just add to the action plan, whatever specific program initiatives are ready to be implemented.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Maybe.
I don't know if we need a
I
second
don't think
goal about
have a
developing the
rolling- I don't think you have like a rolling goal that, you know, whatever program we start to develop or it comes out.
Patty, this is Patty.
There we go.
Patty, this is also the meeting where we set percentage goals, like we put a number next to what we want to do, right? 20% increase in achievement, or is this the time where we do that?
The goals at this point are more broad-based. The action plans, and that's a conversation that you have with your superintendent, you know, what is achievable, what's a stretch goal, because certainly you don't want it to be too easily achievable. You do want to have some stretch in there. But the district goals and the goal statements are somewhat broad, and then you work together for the action plans where you can have more specificity.
We pull out these lunch tables as walls.
You're right.
Organizers. Be
Okay.
specific.
Let's see what they look like. Have any of them yet?
They're hearing whispering, so I'm just going to say this, that, so Phyllis, you just said you want to make sure there's specifics,
Yes.
right? So what we were just saying is that, so these high-level goals say, here's where we want you to focus, right? You're going to develop this program in ELA and math, and then her action plan, she now takes, she sets the specifics, the SMART goals, and the metrics to that.
Okay.
So over the next few meetings, we're supposed to hear what
They
she
are?
thinks those can be, and we review that, et cetera.
Okay. Because I think our main focus right now is math and reading, writing, ELA.
Well, that's what she's saying, yeah, so.
It has to be.
And so the reason why I brought up the basic skills is
You're part of that.
because we are hiring someone, because that is starting, and we haven't had one for a while, like, I would like to see not just the one hire, I would like to see multiple paths towards trying to improve that, and how we're looking at that overall, not just the single. Does that make sense?
I missed I heard the end, sorry. I have something to share, but what was that in regards to?
Oh, I'm jumping ahead a little bit because I think we're still talking about what is happening over there.
I heard you say the smart part is for Julie to determine.
Right.
I get that.
Yeah.
My glasses.
So if the strategic goals are the umbrella, right? And this first, implement initiatives to enhance student achievement. So it's under this umbrella, communication, building capacity, and academic. I guess we're bringing on that first goal, right? So now, the job is, I'm doing the best I can to make it, the job would be what Adam's asking, right? And what I tried to share last year's goal with then what became the SMART goal and the action plan. So this general would become, and it sounds like already the direction is there for year one with natural language arts resource implementation, PD, right, family communication. Year two with the expectation of seeing academic progress, right? So that would be specific, measurable, attainable, time-bound, right? In the action. The second goal, right, as we come up with good enough language to give its own box. What Danielle was saying, what I understood, and what I was hearing her say while I was drawing, is if there was a second goal specific to the continuum of learners, right? Basic skills, multi-language learners, special ed, SOAR, right? For lack of something off the top of my head. Then you would do the same thing. You would say, we need to look at what are we offering in those areas? What are those? Do we have what's
Right, so
necessary?
we'd be more specific
Yeah.
about what they are.
I actually think
Measurable, specific.
Yeah.
so. Sorry, go ahead, Adam.
This helps me too. So I think, and after doing a little chat GPTing, I think it would make sense to break out core, ELA and math, basic skills or underachievers, and high achievers into three, or at-risk students and high-achieving students separately. Otherwise, we talked about that. So okay. So let's keep going there. Well, that's three separate, right? Core. So we all want to enhance student achievement, right? Academic, yes, for student achievement, but which students, right? So agreed. But if we say that,
How do you measure?
I think you can limit that in your action plan to the broadest group, right? We're not talking
if
about.
we do that though, and now we come up with 3 to 4 more goals, that's when you're going to get overwhelmed.
Right.
But if you're making 3 separate goals for core, at risk, and high achievers, now you can get more specific into each, and we're not going to overwhelm you with what ends up being really 8 goals, is what I'm thinking.
Are you thinking of putting that under goal one or creating a whole these
Separate
are
goals.
goals?
Because I think there's going to be there's going to be different action items for each of those populations.
I somewhat agree. My thought was similarly that rather than a single goal for the continuum, that sounds like a whole lot.
Which is not measurable.
Right. But so my thought was, do we need a goal for assessing the continuum and maybe a more specific goal of looking at risk? Because that's something we've actually
Yes.
started to work on.
And attendance, engagement, that's part of the at risk.
Yes, but we're focused, right, for purposes of what we have in the strategic plan and what our conversations have been active, right?
Sure. At risk students being
But is not, so, thank you. So at risk, I think there's always a perception that those kids, those students are somehow lower, right? At risk doesn't, necessarily mean that. We have students that need intervention at every level, which is why
Would that fall under
term of,
communication potentially? Better communication?
yes, but specific to these groups, right? How are we sure, and communication would reign on that one too, but how are we sure, right, that we're, I guess maybe I'm even changing my language, that we are meeting the needs, right, across that continuum of our students that need intervention to perform at grade level, our students that need support because they are, English is not their first language or spoken at home, that they perhaps have a learning difference that we need to address, or at the other end of the continuum that we have to meet their needs at or above grade level. So yes, communication.
So
but I
what
think
goal are you recommending?
I again would want to look at finding a way to assess different than our formative or state assessments, because we already know our subgroups are small. We aren't able to even share the data publicly, right? So we need, as a team, as a leadership team, how are we identifying? Because I also think that there are some issues with the criteria for identification in that continuum, right?
Goal number
Meeting the
2,
needs.
evaluate and assess
Wait, I want
and enhance.
to finish. Wait, I want to hear what you had to
We
say.
got we got 3 more goals you can fill in. Throw down number 2.
Wait,
You don't have to.
I know. I'm just saying there's room for more. Throw down number 2.
Laser, continue. What did you? So this is just an evaluation and assessment goal?
Assess, evaluate how we're assessing. Whatever.
ChatGPT it. Dr. Glazer, would you be able to evaluate based on a percentage instead of having a particular number? So when we're talking about the population, so when we're talking about a population of students and we're not wanting to be specific about numbers, we can say a percentage of the students fall into this population, then they fall into this whatever that may be.
Yes, but I just want to, as a cautionary going into that, if you have 20 students, just for sake of argument, and we are hoping that 80% of those students, right, whatever the goal is, when there are 20 students, think of what we're saying. That's 16, 18, and that's an unrealistic expectation, again, depending on the continuum. Right?
Well, I mean, and if it is 18 or 20, then you can say the percentage of 18 or 20 students, whatever that may be. So that way it's a
But
visual.
what I'm saying is to move, at, if we only test
Use the mic.
we only test at third and fourth grade at Bayberry, so you have the consistent measure, right, for only 2 of the 4 grades we would be looking at. So we would need to be able to use multiple measures, number 1, but number 2, if you are not at grade level, this is educational jargon, but kind of the benchmark. If you're not at grade level, working at grade level, by grade 3, the amount of time it takes to bring you to that expectation grows, right? So we would actually be trying, I would expect, to start very early, the same way that we do early intervention, the same way that you start, right, with pre-K, kindergarten, and we don't have this, it would be a different measure. That's what I'm saying. And with that small number, right, we have 28 pre-K, 50 kindergarten, right, 60, those percentages, if you're moving 10 kids, right, 10 of 50, it's a big expectation. I just want to make sure it's realistic.
All right, so what do you got?
What are you thinking?
So far, we have assess, are we meeting the needs of the continuum of our learners? That's as far as we were writing before I needed the microphone. What else? Add in, jump in. Where's our friend Chat? Chat must have something to add. I have, are we meeting the needs of the continuum of our learners?
You had talked about potentially different groupings, criteria. Like I would be interested in having
Okay.
create the categories that make sense for us and assess what the needs are for each of those categories. Because then we can come up with SMART goals for that, right?
For other criteria for identification,
Is that
instruction, and need another word. Right, Chat. Another word, achievement, progress. What I'm looking at is, are we meeting the needs of the continuum of our learners or the criteria for identification, instruction, and I'm maybe exiting programs, although you don't exit necessarily
Be cool if we could.
but
enhance.
that could include, are we, sending district, are we sending off our 8th graders with the knowledge they need? And is there any? No?
Yes, but that
little bit different.
becomes even, that is harder because now I'm looking K to 8, which is more than our 5 years, right? More than our 5-year strategic plan goals.
Oh.
If I'm going to track that we're doing that, right? Kindergarten, those kindergartners moving their transition, I need more years for those kindergartners.
I guess this is maybe a separate idea. I was just thinking that, are we assessing with our 8th graders if there's a group that isn't prepared for moving into high school?
That's a constant. That is under the role of the principals and the instructional staff. So the stair steps of goals, when we get under the district goal, the administrative goals, the building goals, right? That's where that falls.
Okay.
I have to keep thinking. I know exactly what I'm trying to say, and oh, yes, Chat's going to help us. Yay! Could have just read it.
AI. AI make
Here. I have identified, okay. So ensure systems are in place. Okay, I can't write it. Yes, that's perfect. Send it to me. I'm going to write Chat right here so we know what it is.
Ensure systems are in place to identify and assist students who face academic,
Read it so
behavioral,
Patty
or
can
social
write it.
emotional challenges, fostering equity and access to learning for all. I'll send it to everyone, but ensure systems are in place to identify and assist students who face academic, behavioral, or social emotional challenges,
Oh, no.
fostering equity and access to learning for all.
So I was all with you until we added social, emotional,
That's
and
fine.
the other. That,
It's in our- it's fine.
well, the behaviors and social, emotional
Separate.
can absolutely
Not in the-
impact the
understood.
achievement, but that's not,
Keep it separate.
yeah.
Understood.
But otherwise, I'm all with you.
You said that to me too?
All right, so we have 2.
All right. So,
So that's a year-long goal to ensure systems are in place. And that might affect potentially budgeting, how.
that, I was going to say, and I think that that affects following years, right? You know, if a system wasn't in place and had to be developed, or if, there's so many examples. If we were disproportionate, meaning we didn't have representation of all of our groups along that continuum, that creates a new, right, a new goal or a new action.
We want the evaluation to be this goal and not, right, that then you can solve. and
Correct.
Other plans. Right.
Or create new goals, right? It's if you identify that we are not, right, meeting somebody's need, then you have to create, right, a system or a goal to meet that need.
I think what ensure means is that you're looking to make sure that there are systems and programs in place, and if there are not, then those systems need to be, you know, a system that works for that population needs to be explored and implemented. And so that's not, you know, the first year is just making sure, doing the assessment that the programs that are necessary to assess are there and sufficient. And if not, then what? What's the next step? What programs do you look at?
Do we want a third, or?
I got ideas. I don't know if we want them, but I have them.
I feel like we've touched the first three, but not the last one.
Right. But I also just wanted to mention, right, because we have a world language person, new world language person now, and we have,
Well, that's a Spanish teacher.
right. But do we want to assess world language as a whole? And
So again, that comes under our 3 to 5 year strategic plan goals. Yes, we do. Can we do everything at once? No.
But-
And that doesn't mean that we would not be, right, with a new person. We have the opportunity now for a collaborative team. We have an opportunity for people to be working, right, vertically on curriculum and scope and sequence, which is what we want, and that'll happen. It's
So you think year
separate
two,
from
perhaps?
this.
Right. You think about that as maybe a year two.
Or I think of that maybe as a building
Well,
for the principals.
we have communication and culture and climate too, so I would
The
suggest
strategic
that's
plan
something
goals, yeah.
I'm thinking
that's
two
put under something there.
academic goals, so.
Well, I was going to say with the culture and climate, one of the things when I went back to read, you know, we had talked about looking at schedules. We had talked about adding, if you know, you went to a different schedule at, say, the middle school, how could you add electives? What would that look like? And I think, and I haven't had to do this, thank goodness, but it's coming for a number of years. I was one of the early nationally board certified teachers. And as part of that program, I was a middle childhood generalist. I am a middle childhood generalist, which is 5th grade to 8th grade. And one of the things, there's a leadership group, whatever, a middle school, I guess that's a middle school learning and modeling group, always started with a culture and climate survey. Students, staff, parents, to even figure out, right, what that model looked like. So I think that might be not just limited to the middle school. I mean, it came to me thinking of it that way. I think a culture and climate survey, again, staff, students, families, district-wide, and use that data, right, for...
Would that be more of an action
I think
item,
that's an
though?
action
Like, that's a
item.
very specific.
It is, no, that is yes, that is an action to assess the culture and climate.
I think that's a great idea. But do we want a goal that is assess culture and climate, or do we want
Areas
I
for
think
improvement, for areas
something
for
more-
improvement. Yeah.
I think we want an improvement goal that can include the assessment piece as an action item.
So I think you can't say improve until you know if there's a problem. And that's part of surveying. I just had this conversation yesterday. I'm mentoring a new district leader and their entry planning process. They're like, oh, when I interviewed, the board said this is broken and I got to fix this and I have to go in. And I said, I don't know that you can be successful if you go in thinking it's all broken and you have to fix it. So-
There was something though that I experienced with the NJSBA where they had a school come in and talk about all the different things they did to raise the climate and culture of the building, and they had such great initiatives, such as like they would have the teachers they would start like a walking club, and the teachers would do morning walks before their day began. They started yoga for the teachers and with some of the gym teachers. They did different things around the school with the kids as well, where they would do different competitions, and whoever won, one of them I thought was one of the coolest was that whichever class won got to tape the principal to the wall.
I saw that one. That was a
They
funny
did
one.
like tons of stuff like that. So I mean, like those things, like you can still, even if it's a good climate and culture in the building, you can still have initiatives that still enhance that and make.
I agree. It's the word.
Fun.
Enhance
Yeah.
is what we want instead of improve while we figure
There you go.
out what needs to be enhanced.
You don't want to get taped to the wall, One of them was they had to sleep on the roof or something. Yeah, it was interesting.
It's interesting, all right.
Put the thing over there by.
The principal.
School, climate, and culture.
Assess and enhance?
Yes,
Or just enhance? Doesn't
I
matter.
know how.
Initiative.
Dory, I hear you, and I just want to make sure I'm capturing, oh, thanks, Mo. See what a star you are. Enhance school culture and climate for students and staff, yes?
Yep.
Yes, should be both.
No, I know, I'm trying to just capture your language.
Enhancing for staff requires staff to, put in extra time and effort.
You need, either you need the mic or I'll give you mine. You
No,
need
I
what?
just want to say that, enhancing it for staff requires that staff agree to put in that time.
So I will say, we do have the after-school yoga. We're doing, we did do some nutrition things this year. We had, Karen, I know that you guys did that with insurance. I can't remember all the different choices, a lot of choices, and people did really value that. They did join right in.
Suggest a different wording?
Yeah.
Foster student engagement and positive school culture.
Foster student.
Engagement and positive school culture.
I think that sounds better because the other one's
Thanks, Adam.
that's chat.
I do too. I agree, Dory. I think it has to be foster student and staff engagement.
Done.
Positive school.
Perfect.
More specific than what the other one is because the other is things for interpretation.
So foster student and staff engagement and positive school culture. Yes?
Yes.
Now it's hailing, but it's okay. It's stopped raining, now it's hailing. Did you get it, Patty? Yep.
What do you think, Julie? Is that
Give me one
is
second.
that enough?
Is that?
Well, we have plenty more, but this, I do think this.
Feel good about the number of goals and that they're achievable?
I think that this is a great start, right? I think, just to recap, implement new initiatives to enhance student achievement, which comes under academic, building capacity, PD, and communication, that the first one. The second one is an assessment systems program goal. Assess if we're meeting the needs of the continuum of learners. And I have written down Chat GPT, so I'm counting on you. And then if we're not meeting those, right, if we don't have that in place, explore, create, implement what systems or programs are necessary. And then the third, also an enhance, foster student and staff engagement and positive school culture.
Good.
Consensus? Yes, yes, yes. Phyllis, I'm asking you specifically not to call you out. I know how important that specific measurable part is. Do you think, I am confident that I can make SMART goals, but I want to make sure that you're also with us.
I'm with you.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Anybody else? Did we lose anybody else?
Do we move on to the board goals then? Or?
You hope.
That was to go into a little bit about the board self-evaluation and board goals, if you're up for that. And did you send out the board self-evaluation?
I did.
Well, let me just get him to.
Then I'm gonna, is this mine?
I think they were that.
On the list?
No, I meant.
So
guidance.
it's a lot of good work, a lot of interaction. Next steps is that Dr. Glazer will come up with the action plans for that and bring it back to the board. If you go to the next slide is the board self-evaluation. And next slide. So, go back one. Right? There we go. All right. I'm sorry, to the next one. Okay, so you did the board self-evaluation, and that it's really is a tool that boards can use to improve their governance, or at least to see if there are any cracks in their governance. Fortunately, it's not mandatory, but it is a best practice. If you want to go to the next slide. This year we changed the board self-evaluation somewhat. There used to be 9 standards that were assessed. This year we changed it so that there are 6 standards similar to the superintendent's evaluation. And when we look at the results, you want to look at where the majority have rated in that with the board standards. And those are the 6 board standards that you assessed. I think, could you go to the next slide, please? And then there were overall ending reflective questions. What are our greatest strengths as a board, and what are our greatest challenges as a board? And you also were able to assess if there were board goals, which you had some, you were able to assess them. And that really, we felt, gets you to a better understanding of where the board is. And if you looked at the board self-evaluation and the compilation report, I highlighted some things on it. You want to look at the different goals, the different standards, and see where the majority of the board, you had 7 of your 9 members complete this, where the majority of them felt, where they felt the board was. In almost all of yours, you're in exemplary or proficient. There's some that need areas some areas that are areas in need of growth that board members felt. But overall, look at where the majority felt the board was. We generally believe that any rating, average rating of 3 or above shows a board that works well together. Almost all of yours are at 3 or above. A couple are just a shy below 3. But again, as I said, it looks like that shows a board working well together, which is always a work in progress. Could you go to the next slide? The one thing that I wanted to point out is this chart, which is new this year, and you see where everybody falls in that. You really only have 2 areas that, and none of the areas where the majority feel that there's a need for growth, which I think is great. But there's 2 areas that you may want to look at for your board goals. Is there any, in those that were able to read through the evaluation, were there any comments that stood out to you?
I think
I mean, I picked out a few, but I thought that overall it is well done. No board's perfect, but if you look at a glow comment and a grow comment. So I kind of picked out from one in the vision, mission, and goals. Our glow comment is our shared vision and mission for the district is what brings us together each month. I feel every member of this board truly cares about the district. But as you went through that, where we go next is what you might want to look at for board goals. Did anybody have any questions or comments about the board self-evaluation? I don't want to read through all of it. I can, but.
I just want to say the yellow under vision, mission, goals, and accountability, I think reflects that we've been in building years where we've haven't had a strategic plan and where we all are aware that we're working towards something. So I think that those yellows are not necessarily a sign of us doing poor work. It's where we are in this moment, and I think it reflects appropriately where it's time to move to next.
I agree. That was my interpretation as well.
When I was at the Leadership Summit on Monday, they talked about the governance core a little bit and how we can move to align all of our work to make sure that it lines up with the vision and the strategic goals. And so I would be, I don't know about you guys, interested in maybe talking about what we could do to help. It would improve standard number 1, but I don't know if you have suggestions as to, I'm not totally familiar with this.
Well, and I also think, in a moment, that by doing the strategic plan this year, you haven't had one. And so that strategic plan will bring everybody, should bring everybody together towards that, towards the vision, the vision and mission of the district. But in the governance core, what you can, do things like put on your agenda and post in every school the vision statement. So it's there and it's visible for people to see. Some boards even recite that vision periodically at a board meeting. Put your district goals and your board goals and the strategic plan goals, just the goal statements on your agenda and reflect everything back to that, every agenda item.
So is there a way to word the goal where the goal is to make effort to, I need GTP, Adam, to align the board's work, board business, with school's mission, vision, and strategic plan. I know action items would be like working on the agendas and making sure that the visions are there, the mission statements are there, but also even aligning agenda items, listing what agenda items are attached to which goals, just to ensure that all of our work everything that we're doing is moving in the same direction, and it's not going off in various tangents.
Listing on the agenda, on the board agendas, what strategic plan goal or what district goal or board goal that all of those action items align with.
Yes, some districts do that.
I mean, that sounds great.
I like it.
It's a lot of work, though.
You have to do.
That sounds
Mount Olive
wonderful.
does it, Newark does it, but just some way of, and we can work out the details. Yeah, I just looking. Like,
Right, I
don't know what
understand.
you
You want to
guys
break
think
it
of.
down so
I
that
wanna just
people understand we're doing this because we made this
Keep
goal.
us on track and make sure that we're also reaching our
Let me get him to where.
objectives and that
Yeah,
we're
no,
moving in the
it
right
sounds
direction.
great.
I just don't know how to, I don't know what anybody else thinks about that, or I don't know how to word
I
that.
like it.
I think it makes a lot of sense in curriculum. Policy might be a little harder.
You focus.
Let me just, if you could go through to the next slide, because I have your board goal in the next one. Now, the board goals are sufficient, should be sufficiently broad to talk about improve your governance, continuous improvement, accountability. Next one, please. Again, 3 to 5 carry over from the prior year. Next one, because this is, yep, next one with the mountain. There we go. So what can you, the board goals are what can you do as a board to improve your governance and be more effective in what you do? Here's some ideas, right? What support the strategic plan goals. At some point, and support means not only just saying, yay, let's do it, it's making sure that the financial resources are available when you need them to address the different parts of the strategic plan, whether that be you need more, whatever, a new textbook, or you need professional development. When the administration comes to you, you support whatever, within reason, whatever you need to promote the strategic plan. Professional development, not only for your staff, but for you. Right. This year you achieved, you worked hard and you got board certification. Well, there's another level of board certification called Master Board Certification, which is doing an additional 10 hours of professional development in the next 2 years. Very few districts have achieved that. So what you're looking at is something that's more broad. Support, well, and some of the phraseology, support administration to achieve the district goals. And if there were any challenges that came out of your board self-evaluation, I saw several comments about committees and board members not feeling some board members not feeling that they get all the information. Which can be a challenge, because I looked at your committee structure. You have 4 committees. Do you provide, before the committee meeting, the agenda to all board members? Right. And then the minutes after? Well, that would hopefully help in that if somebody had a concern or a question about something on the agenda, they could reach out to the committee chair to talk about that. Or do you want to look at going from a board of committees to a committee of the whole, where there are no committees and everything is discussed by the full board all the time?
Can you explain how that works?
How does
that work?
How is that? It just means there's, other than there's just simply no committees. What you discuss in a committee has to be done publicly.
So people tend to do a working board meeting
Yeah.
and then a business board, like 2 board meetings instead
Yes.
of the individual committee
You work through everything.
publicly.
So it does impact what, like all your personnel would then have to be done in executive session, and you wouldn't be able to get into You may not be able to get into the specificity that you could in a committee meeting, right, when you don't have a quorum present. Once you have a quorum present in an executive session, then any personnel discussion, you have to raise the staff member. And some boards swear by that, that you have no committee meetings, everything is done at the board table. And so you have, as Dr. Glazer said, one meeting a month where you're having the discussions, in public, and the second meeting would be where you're voting.
I think,
No.
and Patty, if you, maybe you're best positioned to talk about this. So we're a board of committees, right? And the committees have a different focus. So you would not talk about everything in every committee, right? That doesn't make sense. You'd have really.
Everything that you talk about in, say, your curriculum or your finance committee, you discuss that in every committee. That would be, duplicating in effort, and certainly. But if the agenda is available, and then the minutes after, that should give. That can give board members the opportunity to reach out to the committee chair to talk about it. Doesn't mean you can't ask those questions in public either. That just means you can get your questions answered ahead of time. But if you have every committee, if you're going to present every piece of information in every committee, then you might as well do a committee of the whole, because it's the same thing.
Okay, I think we have the goal for you. Clearly communicate how Board of Education decisions and actions align with district goals, ensuring transparency, accountability, and strategic coherence.
Thank
Okay, we're working over here. Just
Chat's working.
I do think that's a great goal. So
Send it
separately-
out.
that was for what
Yes.
Jen
No,
said.
I know, I think that's an awesome goal. Just, do we want to write that down, or?
I believe
I wanna-
that they're just going to email.
Just going to email it. So responding to what Patty's talking about, I also think there is a communication issue that I don't think the committee of the whole is the answer to, but I think we need to do a better job of having committee chairs communicating what's going on in committee to the rest of the board, perhaps. And there certainly are topics that I think Dr. Glazer, ends up having to go round robin with all the committees to talk about, and I'm not sure if that's the right way to do that. Like, when it comes to these district goals, perhaps, and how is it going with the, let's say, goal of assessing the continuum, right? We all want to know that. Does that happen in curriculum, and then the curriculum chair tells everybody else how that's going at the board meeting?
No, I think that would be part of the public.
It's usually part of our minutes too. I mean,
But there were a lot of comments about, I don't know what's going on.
And it's probably the complaint I get the most is people wanting, like, the budget is the perfect example. Everybody wants all the information that's given to the finance committee. But if we're going to do that,
yeah, no, you're never going to get all that
no,
information.
I mean, it's hours and hours and hours of work because of sunshine laws. We can't only have, 4 people at a time. So now
Right.
it's being repeated 3 times.
You're supposed to trust your fellow board
Right,
members.
and it gets repeated whenever anybody has like a topic that's really important to them. So let's say like academic scores, but somebody's not on curriculum, but they want the full picture before the presentation or beyond the presentation. So it is a source of frustration for me because I get a lot of calls and it just takes a lot of time. I know it takes Dr. Glazer a lot of time too to repeat the conversations. So if there was a way to set up the structure, and I like checking the agendas ahead of time for sure and reading the minutes, and making sure the minutes are
Robust.
People have
Robust.
been doing a great job. I have to say, I think that
and
the
calling
minutes have been
I,
calling the chair when you have
I would
a
just say,
question.
yeah, just ask the chair if you see on the agenda, you would just ask the chair to add it.
But then
If you don't see it on your committee's agenda, that's what I would say. I mean, and I don't know, the superintendent usually will just go around to each committee with hot topics. So if it's the budget, Julie's been very good about that and making sure that, you know, she tries to keep everybody up to date in every committee as much as possible. I don't think you want to sit through like a 6-hour budget meeting that has already happened in operations in a policy meeting, right? Which already has stuff on it. So she has to give a brief, you know, overview of, if you have specific things, then you should either contact the chair or talk to Julie. But I mean, the other component of it is the board president is in every single meeting. So they're the person who hears everything that's going on as opposed to the rest of the board who isn't in every meeting. So a lot of the times if the superintendent potentially misses something or whatever, they can always pick and say, oh, actually, we should discuss this as well because this is probably going to bleed over into this, you know, committee, or, you know, it's important for this committee to understand what this other committee is doing because it could, you know, you might have to work together and whatnot. So it's a combination of your board president and the superintendent, but to have all those topics, it would be too much. That's why I say you have to trust the people who are in and assigned to that committee, that they're doing their job and their due diligence in making sure that whatever's presented to them is clear and concise, and that they're providing the rest of the board with the minutes and information that they need. So if anybody feels lost, it's your job. It's not the chair of the committee's job, because they can't read minds. And I've said this many times in the past. The superintendent and the board president cannot read your mind. You have to ask questions. So if you're not sure about something, you have to put the effort into doing that, because they're not going to know. And we can't have 8-hour committee meetings.
That's,
I mean, and we've come close sometimes to 8-hour committee meetings. So it's kind of like,
But I
that's how the
also,
structure works.
and I want to say too, at the beginning of this board, Dory, you had asked, right? So everything is available to everybody. You can go into any committee folder, see all the agendas, the minutes, the supporting documents. We can see when you're in there, so take advantage of that, because it is there. But Dory had asked early on, could we take the agenda, the minutes, anything that was going to be on the agenda, right, from any of the committees. And that is in the board packet, and that has been in the board packet before it's public, so everybody has at least 48 hours. Sometimes we get calls. You probably are, at this point, getting more, right, than we are.
And sometimes, as the chair of a committee, I'll look at other committees' agendas, and if I see something on there that I think would be good for my committee, that's when I just say, I want this topic also discussed in the committee that I'm on.
What do you guys,
So,
what do you guys think about establishing like a board norms document?
I love it.
Anybody understand what I mean? Because I didn't know until Monday, but I have an example.
Professional learning community.
It could set up how we communicate. Yes.
so there are boards out there that
Yeah,
work
so
together.
it would be, I mean, I don't know if we do an ad hoc or we just assign it to somebody,
No,
but,
you do it as another even retreat.
right, but you pick like a governance principle, like collaborate, and then you would create your action items under it. Here's one that will resonate with us all. We stand behind, collaborate, we stand behind the majority vote of the board, no matter how each board member individually voted. We do not undermine a decision that is taken by the majority after a vote is finalized. Another one, be transparent and communicate effectively. We strive to understand different opinions expressed by our fellow board members, the superintendent, our staff, students, and members of the community. Be coherent. We commit to upholding and working within the board-adopted governance principles, norms, protocols, and bylaws. We maintain confidentiality. Be student-centered. We focus on what is best for students and strive to cultivate the unique gifts, talents, and interests of every learner. So it's really just
There's a whole process
bunch
for
of them.
developing norms, and I love to have you guys go through that.
Does developing norms include actual like protocol, meaning
think
we will
again.
have, you know,
The way we
committee
communicate.
agendas
Yeah.
printed
Like,
here?
what are our norms? How are
Well,
we
it
going to
can.
function as a board?
It's how, you're right, like everybody, everybody's voice is heard, or whatever you value.
There's a bunch,
That way it enforces consistency.
right?
But you have to create your own, I mean, these are great, but you, for your working group, you would go through the process to develop your own norms.
Yeah,
No
what works
surprise
for
rules in
you.
here.
No
here.
surprises.
We communicate openly, we respect and support one another, we focus on the needs of the whole district. I mean, you could put anything in it.
I love it just because then you're your own professional learning community.
And we could-
that grows your other
We
growth.
could put our
your-
communication
It's a good idea,
norms
Danielle.
into it.
It also helps when you have new board members, right? You give them the board norms and what the expectations are of them. It helps their, their orientation to being on the board, because we all know that
So establish board norms, is that simple enough?
could be a board goal. I mean, we certainly have other districts who can send examples
Yeah.
of what's out there.
Is that a goal in and of
Is
itself?
that- Do people like that, establishing board norms? The way we communicate, we were structured. We kind of killed it on the respect thing. I think we're doing an excellent job, but we could certainly put it in.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So you want to establish board norms?
Establish board norms. And then I do like the idea, I don't know what you guys think of getting the master's certification. And that would be 3 goals.
Okay, so we have another one for you.
Okay, 4.
Establish and maintain clear norms, protocols, and operating procedures to ensure effective, respectful, and transparent governance aligned with the district's mission and values.
So many words and jargon for
Establish board norms.
Adam and I got
down.
this under control here.
Thank you, ChatGPT.
I'm fine with expanding it, Adam.
We'll email it.
Yeah.
Adam will email it.
Is anyone
Is
else
that-
interested in getting the master's certification? It's like another, 5.5 hours of PD? Which we've got some.
This
Have
is,
4.5.
We've got
Oh, you
some.
went over.
Yeah,
Good
so it's
job,
not,
all
I
of
think
you.
we could do, I don't know, anything, I think, is there PD on this? I mean, that would tie in with the other goal. I kind of like the idea of doing
let's do it tonight.
a public presentation on board roles, because I feel like the public doesn't always get that.
that's awesome.
Candidates running don't always get that. I think it's like the #1 complaint when people first join the board, and they're like, what do you mean I can't do this, right? So, plus it's always a good reminder for us, so I would love to do a public
Do it.
presentation on that. And that would count.
We could do, that could be, our PD at a board meeting,
I think that's a great
the roles and
Make
responsibilities.
yourselves a
'Cause it is
professional
as,
line
it's
community.
equally as helpful for your public, because they don't quite, they don't quite understand what it is that you can and can't do, and all the structures that are in place. Primarily, I think the big one is that it takes a majority of the board to do anything. Nobody can go into, and when I was on my township committee, I could go in and talk to the police chief and expect that they're going to have that conversation with me, but you can't as a board member. It felt wrong when I did it, but no, you just can't. People don't understand
I
that.
think it's like the #1 miscommunication or misunderstanding that
Yeah.
we run into.
You know what I mean?
And that would probably, between the board roles and maybe a little bit on governance, aligning with the other 2 goals we just did, we would be almost there.
Trying to-
So I'm.
As I'm lining you up right now while you're
Is that
here.
our 1-year goal for master?
We have 2 years, well, I guess a year and a half now, right? Or do we have 2 years from today?
A year and a half for,
Since we got the first certification?
Oh, yeah.
When does the 2 years start?
well, I mean, you got the first, so you have, no, it's not quite, it's a little more than a year and a half.
Okay.
And I think I forgot to bring the number tonight, but I told you were more than, you were 4.5 hours, I thought, over.
Yeah, so it would have to
Do we
be by
want to try and get that in 1 year?
January 2020. I think we can do it in 1 year if we've already got
Are
4.
we going to school boards again?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but that doesn't, that counts towards individual certifications, not toward.
10 hours
unless
extra
you do a
each?
retreat
No, that's
Or as a board?
done
I want them
4.5
to be
hours
a
of it already.
PLC. I'm very excited by it.
So
Say that again.
it's 5.5 hours. We have 5.5 hours left. The
That we each have to do, or we?
no, we have to do it collectively.
It has to be the full board, or at
Least-
least a majority of the board
majority of the
and the
board. So
superintendent.
if we did the
And me.
roll, that would
And me.
publicly, that would be the whole board. And yes, Julie
I mean,
Glazer has to.
No, but I love the idea, but I really do.
none of the,
Sound that-
none of the topics qualify as
So
executive
if it
sessions.
takes
so
us
it's all
18
public.
months, it takes us 18 months. But I
Sound like it's hard to.
5.5 hours. If we've already done 4.5,
Commit to
Yeah.
the commitment that we have to make sure everyone is up for, you know? Because we already commit a lot.
It doesn't necessarily have to be separate meetings. You could take an hour, like roles and responsibilities, at a board meeting. It could also be a Saturday or an offline retreat for a couple hours. It does have to be noticed as a public meeting, simply because none of topics qualify for executive session, but it doesn't mean it has to be this formal either. You notice it as a public meeting, you go and, I mean, I think you do a great job with the way this is set up, to be close to each other and not to be, far away, and to talk so that you seem like, you're a team. And so that is,
I think the idea that Jen had come up with in regards to educating the public in the big scheme of things, granted, it may take extra time right now, but bigger picture, longevity would actually help us in minimizing questions, concerns, and potential comments that the public does not understand. So I think short-term time, bigger results in the end. So I think it behooves us to do it.
I mean, ultimately, to keep your board certification, you have to keep up.
up with the
It's good for 4 years. So if you're doing 10 hours or so, that'll get you 2 more years. But to keep it active, you have to continue the board professional development.
If we got the master thing, what would we need to do to maintain it?
I'm sorry?
What would we need to do to maintain the master certification?
It would just continue your professional development, 10 hours in
Hours for over 2 years?
2 years. Well, because
on
if you
board
have
with
it
that?
for 2 years, you've done your 4 years, 2 years,
Yeah.
You can do it.
we can do it. All right. Any other?
And we'll make it.
Okay, so that's 3. Is there?
We have a majority.
Okay, so we have 3. We have
You have 3.
master's certification, the board norms, and then the wonderful ChatGPT that aligns us with our.
what was the first one you said, Jen?
Aligning the board's work to the vision, mission, and goals.
Okay. Oh, you're going to send that.
Whatever
to
came out of
ChatGPT,
chat.
okay.
and
Your own
establish
PLC with norm.
board norms and go for our master's board certification. We don't need to say go for,
Go for
Well, that's
but complete.
Go for it.
That's 3.
Complete.
But who has the ChatGPT?
You need to be able to copy Patty too.
Does anybody have anything else that they wanted to add to goals? Or do we feel satisfied with those?
I think you did great.
All right.
One of the things you mentioned earlier, Dr. Glazer, was that we need,
I'm kidding. but-
being formal,
No,
to
you're
think
good.
about it, is that we should be thinking about meeting scheduling in terms of updates and things like that today. Like, do we need to make space for,
Reporting
you
out
said
on
like the milestone updates?
So we would do,
Goals.
so over the summer, that's one of the things that we committed to with the strategic plan. The building principals are organizing all of those building event, every concert, back to school night, all of that. They are going to work with the PTO and WEF to try and layer that in. We've also had suggestions to please put in the iReady windows, the report cards home, the dates that are the homework-free, assessment-free. It's going to be a pretty robust calendar. But the other thing we committed to, not that I don't enjoy having the people that are with us, and thank you for being consistent, but we feel like, I think all of us feel, it's time for people to come back. You used to have people coming to the board meetings. I know that that changed. And so one of the things during the strategic plan we talked about was scheduling student presentations, staff presentations, in addition to like what we have, I hate to say what we have to do, but what we have to do, so that it's an incentive for people to come, right? Yeah. Whether that's, so far we've reached out to staff to talk about AI. I know that we had a group of students who are working on a science, not science fair, but a science competition. It was a national parks something that we were hoping for them to be able to present in May. They couldn't. So those, every meeting to have that focus on students, on staff, in addition to those. So we'll schedule them.
Right.
And that brings the mission to your meet, right, to life at your meeting.
So I need
those presentations.
So like I know October is the performance report. Like we know that. We know that. January with the after the reorg is usually state of the district that covers the goals.
You had said earlier today, you said if we need to schedule different ways to report on how these goals are moving along, we should do that. Do we need to do that?
Tonight? No, that's what I'm saying. I think, yes, we do, but in conjunction with, like, if we're going to highlight, I think there was a SOAR competition, right? STEAM. So the night that we are having those students or we're highlighting that would be a great night to talk about program review or that continuum.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Do we want to pick how often we report out on the board goals? Do you want to do
Like a
quarterly report?
I mean, generally, quarterly is a reasonable amount. I mean,
Everybody okay
saying
with quarterly report?
you just covered 2 hours of your 5.5 tonight, at least.
Woohoo!
So, I mean, you're almost there.
Good? Everybody good?
Almost there.
All right.
No, but that's awesome.
Really, it's a great message to your board, to you, or all your hard work, your staff, and your community. Okay.
Can I just say, I think it's really exciting and energizing. Not only are all 9 people here and excited, also it looks like you're engaged and excited. I love it. Do. That like makes my night. Oh, you are. You're tired from work, but you're excited. Look at him. He's like, yes, I'm so excited.
Patty, do you help us with the evaluation method of the superintendent, or are you done?
I'm sorry? Choosing the evaluation.
So now we have, the next
method
item
for
on the
next
agenda
year.
is to choose the method that we're going to use next year to evaluate the superintendent,
Okay.
whether or not we're going to use the school board's tool that we used this year, or
narrative.
we'll
that
go
we
to a
did.
narrative, which we did the
Right. You can use any tool as long as you and the superintendent agree, the board and the superintendent agree to it. We do provide a tool, NJSBA, that I think you used this year, that gives you the compilation report and is aligned. It was the superintendent's evaluation process. We did it in conjunction with the New Jersey ASA, the Association of School Administrators, so that we work together so that it better reflects the duties and the job of the superintendent. But you don't have to use the tool. You can use anything as long as the board and the superintendent agree.
Anybody have any thoughts on the two systems?
Does the
Does the narrative system include all of the, both goals and indicators, the standards?
It's up to you.
Same, is it the same sort of assessment at the end?
Well, if you use NJSBA's tool, that all comes part of it. But if you use another tool, then it would be board members who would have to compile that
Right,
evaluation.
you would, if it's a narrative, you do it. You guys write it. It's not a tool.
Okay,
It's
how
not
about, was there any complaints with the NJSBA tool? Did anybody dislike it?
Right, well,
Besides,
that's why I was
and it's
saying, 'cause
fine. I think, oh, I did have some significant
I just- my
issues,
one-
technical issues.
I was
though, not-
wondering-
Not
Right.
completing it, technical.
But I was wondering if you could just provide the narrative to us, and then we can use the tool for voting and assessment. Like, does that change anything?
So, yes, because then you lose your, so the reflections on the goals, right? Tied to those standards, like I took, if it was budget, through the lens of the standards. So I guess my question would be, and I'm fine either way, it's a lot more, I will say, it'll be a lot more work for you because you have to compile it as opposed to the tool compiling it.
No, I want the tool to compile it. I wanted our work to be in the tool. I was wondering if your work had to be in the tool.
Yeah, because you won't be able to see it. And it's fine. I do think that they figured out what it was a Google Chrome syncing issue between servers every time. Like if I went from home to work or work from home, it did not sync.
Karen, do we have to be voting on any of these?
Not tonight. When you do
Do we have to vote on the evaluation method, or we just come to a consensus?
consensus.
Is everyone happy?
Everybody happy with the tool?
Yeah.
So we'll figure.
Okay, fine.
And our IT is aware of those glitches because
Yeah, he was
most
great.
districts use Google, where we use Microsoft. So that is a summer project.
Most districts use Google for,
Google Chrome.
Everything.
Google Classroom.
for this.
Right,
Okay,
right.
got it, okay.
So they are aware, and it is a summer project to kind of, I mean, it wasn't only Dr. Glazer was,
I heard. I was actually felt glad to know that it wasn't just me.
oh, I know.
Thank you very much, Patty, for helping us through
For
the,
everything.
self-assessment and the goal setting for the district and board goals. I think we came up with some good goals.
I do
do
too.
too.
I think it's, like I said, I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. It's hard to,
No, I think you had good discussion, and you came up with good goals.
I'm just laughing at,
Great.
that's the picture she took. My little umbrella for you, Jessica.
Moving on to comments from the
Stick figure
public
level.
on agenda items. We welcome input from the public. There are 2 times during the meeting when the public is invited to speak. The first opportunity to comment on agenda items only is now. This is going, oh no, there is 2, okay. Second opportunity for public comment is towards the end of the meeting. All comments are limited to 5 minutes. The total time allotted for public comment is 30 minutes. Before you make your comment, please state your name and municipality of residence. In the event it appears the public comment portion of the meeting may exceed 30 minutes, the presiding officer may limit each statement made by a participant to 3 minutes duration. Our public forums are not structured as a question and answer session, but rather are offered as opportunities to share input with the board. In instances where the board feels a response is needed, the presiding officer or superintendent will address the comment. New Jersey statutes do not permit the board to discuss personnel or hiring in public session. Names of students should not be used. Members of the public should consider their comments in light of legal rights of those affected and identified in their comments, and be aware that they are personally, legally responsible with potential liability for comments that they make to the board. The board shall not be held liable for comments made by members of the public. Any comments? Okay. Can I get a motion to go into, thank you, executive session, whereas the Open Publics Meeting Act, NJSA 10:4-11, permits the Board of Education to meet in closed session to discuss certain matters. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Education adjourns to closed session to discuss a specific prospective or current employees unless all who could be adversely affected request an open session. Further resolved, the minutes of this closed session be made public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists and action may be taken.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right, going into executive session.
I
Back out of executive session, moving on to board business. Does anyone have any board business?
AC works really well in here. That's it.
A referendum.
Any comments from the public? Be here? Can I get a motion to adjourn? You guys are,
So moved.
Second.
any discussion? All in
Aye.
favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.
So I just want you all to know.